There are moments in every leader's life that don't go the way they predicted. This show is about speaking through those moments. I'm Margaret Watts-Romney, and this is Speakership in the Time of Change, the communication podcast for established leaders who are done leaving their most important moments to chance. Today, I'm taking you inside the story of the youngest boy to pitch on Shark Tank, his journey now to the world of AI, and the one thing he does to speak with confidence and ease, even in murky waters. In 2014, Jack Bonneau was an 8-year-old kid who wanted a Death Star Lego set. He asked his dad for it, and his dad said sure, if Jack earned the $400 himself. That started him down a path that included handing lemonade to strangers, 2 TEDx talks, and a pitch in the Shark Tank. I have known you for quite some years. Where did we first meet?
We met at TEDx. That was my first TEDx at that point, right? All the speakers get to know each other, and meeting with you and kind of going through like introductions and I think some exercises at that point. Yeah, that was our first time meeting.
What were you thinking and feeling then when you came into that room?
Definitely felt a little bit out of place. I was certainly the youngest there, and I, new experience completely. So I was just kind of, I think, testing the waters, seeing, who I'm with, kind of what the deal is. So I was definitely a little nervous, but I do remember, as the kind of session went on, getting much more comfortable.
There you were, the youngest speaker ever at TEDx Boulder, but you had some pretty unusual ideas and a pretty unique background before that. It was not your first time on the stage. It was not your first time in front of a high-pressure audience. You had done that before. So where did it all start? Where was the moment, Jack, that set you on the trajectory to get you up on that stage?
I'm 10 years old, but when I was 8 years old, I really wanted a Lego set, but it cost $400. The good news was my dad said I could have it.
But he'd have to pay for it with his own money.
So, I did what most of you probably would do. I started my own lemonade stand. After 12 weeks, I made $900 after expenses.
Wow.
Learned some valuable lessons, and yes, I got my Lego Death Star.
So, the classic one is me coming to my dad, asking for a Lego Death Star. He says, pay for it yourself. I say, great. I say, I want to do a lemonade stand. I take it to a farmer's market. I learn a lot. This is a journey rather than kind of the destination of the money. And I noticed some kind of changes in myself. Like before that, I'm 8 years old. I'm not that comfortable talking with anyone else, much less random adults that are walking through the farmer's market. But that changed, and it did something for my confidence, and I noticed it. I was like,
how did that change? What changed? What did you notice?
Sure. I knew that like every kid, you put them in front of a random adult, they're probably going to tense up. They're going to be a little timid. They're not going to be as expressive. But my dad kept pushing me out in the front of the stand, being like, hey, you know what? Reach out. Say, would you like a lemonade or iced tea? And I would interact with them as they bought it. And the worst thing that I realized that was going to happen was they were going to say no, and they were going to keep walking. And then I was going to go back to the back of my stand, and I was going to refill the lemonade. Wow. Revolutionary, right? But through that experience, I kind of realized, I was like, there really isn't any risk or anything, not that there's any risk, there's just nothing to fear here.
Jack made a change. He started from wanting one thing, the Lego set. His wish got him to speak up to his dad, which led to him selling lemonade, to the next step of speaking to lots of adults. Lots of adults he didn't know. This was a bigger room. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he took a step back to look at the bigger picture. He asked himself a question. What's the worst thing that could happen? This process of shifting his perspective from the wish in front of him to the bigger picture, it would happen again. What was going through your mind to prepare you before the Today Show, before New York Times, before Shark Tank?
Thinking back to those times. Well, for the New York Times newspaper, love that. It was much simpler than recorded television. But I remember distinctly being nervous, wanting to do a good job, like, because it is different than when you're at a stand. Like, there is talking to a random adult, but then there's also talking to not really random adults, right? Like, the Sharks are not random adults. The hosts of the Today Show aren't random. And then also having your correspondence with them being broadcast across the nation. So that was a learning curve, similar to how the just reaching out to random adults at the stands was. But I think the biggest thing going through my mind was because I was nervous, but I also just wanted to kind of share what I was doing more than, because at that point, like with Shark Tank, it is a memorization thing. You need to get out the information that you want in the time that they've allotted you. So making sure that we had that down, working with the producers for that pitch. But in my mind, it was just kind of a mix of nervousness and excitement. I do remember being very nervous, but also excited because I think I was fortunate enough to have like my dad and my mom around me who kind of pulled me out of the memorization and the speaking and like, oh, you have to do a good job, and be like, look where you are. Like, this is a really cool thing that you're doing. And I remember that, and I think that helped calm me down. So that was one of the key emotions running through me.
To get ready for the tank, Jack had to have every word of his pitch solid. There was a serious time limit and the pressure of all of their eyes on him and his wish to get them to hear and see and support his story. His dad could see his extreme focus on memorizing his pitch, and it was not helping Jack's nerves. So, Steve, Jack's dad, took a pause and helped Jack step back to see the bigger picture. He said to him, "Look at where you are. This is a really cool thing you're doing." After the Shark Tank, Jack went into high school, and his stands selling lemonade and kid creations shifted into a bigger scope, supporting his peers and youth all around with entrepreneurship. He spoke about it at 2 different TEDx events and started a company based on the gig economy, youth delivering packages and food in neighborhoods. He worked towards this vision of teens on their bikes and scooters, solving the problem of the last mile of package delivery in neighborhoods, the whole time learning about entrepreneurship, business, and financial responsibility. Towards the end of high school, Jack realized he had another thing capturing his attention, and then another.
I've always liked math and had been accelerated in math throughout school, like elementary and middle school. And then when I got into high school, I took a course in physics and I just loved it. I don't know, something about learning about the world as it is and the rules that govern it was just fascinating to me. So I took a second course the next year, and then I was like, I've got to explore this more. It was kind of the same feeling that I had felt when I was exposed to the world of entrepreneurship. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. I've got to see more of this. So I was accepted to Dartmouth. I chose to pursue that, and I have no regrets. I do love physics. I'm a physicist.
Jack is a physicist. This is how he defines himself, and he claims the title with joy. But in the middle of his studies, he got a phone call.
So I was working full-time in my quantum spin lab at Dartmouth. I was randomly reached out to by a company working on AI logistics, and they reached out to me. They offered me a job, and I just remember I was walking over the carpet I had laid down, and I was looking in a mirror, and I was just like, am I actually considering this? Like, is this actually what I might do? Because the prescribed path for me was, oh, you do the PhD, you go down the physics route, and to have something come to you and change your view, and you have to internalize and be like, hold on, wait, maybe this isn't it. You know, I had believed it was this for a while, but maybe not. It was a weird feeling, but it was also kind of exciting because, like I said, everything up till that point from high school, which is when you really start thinking about these things, I was like, I wanted to pursue physics while keeping with my businesses, but now this other thing came in, and I think that's what made it so exciting and intriguing. I got this opportunity that I just could not pass up because with the world today, the world is a crazy place with AI, and I kind of wanted to position myself in what I believe to be a more resilient position than what I would be in if I chose to stay at Dartmouth and pursue the physics, which is where I'm at now. I've been here for 6 months, but definitely doesn't change my feelings about physics. Still majorly a physicist. I mean, that's the whole kind of deal of life, is just being adaptable to the circumstances that come to you, right? Good or bad. In this case, it was great. And I just remember thinking, like, this is kind of one of those times that I'm going to look back on where it's like, you had to make a choice, so just make it to the best of your ability in that time and stick with your choice, right? I mean, that's all you can do.
So, Jack had some big conversations with his professors, packed up his college life, and shifted back to working life. But the world of AI doesn't have a predictable path like a lemonade stand at a farmer's market, or giving a TEDx talk, or helping packages reach their last destination safely. What have you learned that's been helpful for you on a day-to-day basis about facing unknowns and changes?
Yeah, that's been like the biggest learning curve for me at this job, because it happens so quickly. And I realized, like a month into this entire job it's a mind game. Like, you've just got to understand, like, okay, sometimes things are going to get hard and it's going to look like the world's against you. But all that really matters is just like what you can do, because that's all you can do. So just focus on what you can do. Like, I know I go to sleep each night soundly, maybe not a whole lot of hours sometimes, but soundly anyways, because I know I've looked at the situation, I've kind of analyzed the different factors, and I know that I've done what I can do.
In all of Jack's previous projects, there was something that caught his attention, something he wanted, and then he shifted his perspective to a bigger view to make that thing happen. I see that this is his pattern here with AI as well. To navigate the emotional and mental demands of the changing landscape, at the end of the day, he zooms out to take a bigger look at himself. He asks, what am I fully capable of? Did I do my best? Jack shifted his perspective to the bigger view. Whether he was handing lemonade to strangers at a farmer's market, speaking up to sharks in New York, enlisting peers to join his delivery business, leaving home to study physics, or managing the daily chaos of the AI landscape, he learned how to take that step back. So, what is going on in our brains when we take that step back? Why can it help us move forward? Researchers from Ann Arbor and Berkeley took a closer look at what happens when we move away from ruminating about our feelings and view ourselves from a bigger distance. The brain region involved here is the default mode network, a part of the brain I'm sure you're familiar with when it can get caught in cycles of self-referential rumination. It also can be a source of great creativity, but we'll explore that another time. This default mode network cycle can sound something like, what will they think of me? How am I doing? Will I remember what to say next? What do I do with my hands? And do I just sound dumb? This cycle is important for leaders to recognize quickly and get out of as soon as possible. When we're in a self-critical quagmire, we can't hear other people's perspectives or make decisions with clarity. One way out of this? Awe. Feeling awe. Looking at things bigger than ourselves. This could look like being in nature, mindfulness of the sensory world around you, thoughts of faith, or viewing the bigger story of your life. When our brain stretches to take in things bigger than ourselves, the default mode network quiets, we downshift into being more emotionally regulated, and we even are more prone for pro-social behavior. In studies of how people behave after experiencing awe, they act more generously, show compassion more quickly, and act with less entitlement. This is some super cool science, and there are links in the show notes. For Jack, stepping into the bigger perspective of the story of his life had a direct effect on his speaking.
I think that kind of my biggest takeaway from my journey is just, you do what you can, and also there's no reason to fear. You just Because if you do what you can, then you're not really fearing anything because you've done what you can, and you can't do more than you can, right? So I think that, speaking kind of taught me that, because you can prepare and you can know your stuff. And then there was a time when I was in that position, memorization. And then I transitioned into just speaking freely and understanding that I was sharing a story. And I kind of try to extrapolate that experience of going from the memorization to just speaking and sharing to more than just the actual speaking, because it's more about just understanding what you have and who you are and your story and the work ethic you have, or whatever it might be in these different contexts, and just doing what you can with that. So I'd say that was my biggest kind of takeaway throughout this journey.
Maybe the question isn't whether you'll feel the fear, but whether you're willing to step back far enough to see the bigger world you're in and what you're capable of. If this episode gave you something useful, follow us, share, and leave a review. It helps us support leaders everywhere. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.